Welcome, everyone. My name's Mary Fetchett, and I'm founding director of Voices Center for Resilience, and we're thrilled to see you here at the presentation today. The title of today's presentation is Learning to Thrive, Not Just Survive During the Holidays, and we have a lot of challenges at a busy time of year, not just juggling our work and our home, but also the demands of the season. So today we're going to learn ways to thrive during the hustle and bustle of the holiday season. And Mickie will provide us with new and creative tools to enjoy this time of year and connect with our particular observances, she says, in a profound way. I want to welcome Mickie Brown, and for those of you that may have attended the last session that we had with Mickie, Mickie's a clinical manager for education, mindfulness, and patient well-being at the Mount Sinai Centers for Occupational Health in New York City. Mickie's a holistic nurse, a certified mind-body medicine instructor, and a qualified mindfulness-based stress reduction instructor. I hope she's going to be sharing some of that with us today. So Mickie, welcome. You know, most importantly, we've known each other for a long time, and anytime I see your presentation, I pick up new things to think about and being more mindful and lowering.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you. And thank you to everybody for having me back again and to talk about this really important topic of really being able to thrive during this holiday time of year. Let me just bring up my presentation. Okay, and as you can see on this first screen, the fellow in the top left-hand corner, I love him because he could either be laughing or screaming, right? And so during this holiday season, we can often have conflicting emotions, not even really knowing what we're feeling. We can just be on overwhelm. So if you're feeling a lot of holiday stress, I just want you to understand that according to the American Psychological Association, 38% of people surveyed said that the stress increased during the holiday season. And of course, that stress can lead to physical illness or depression or anxiety or substance misuse. So you're not alone, is what I'm trying to say. Many of us feel this. So our seminar goals today are to really identify the main sources of our holiday stress. And then we're going to talk about some really mindful antidotes to the stressors, including short, on-the-spot practices for self-care, because one thing that we all feel that we don't have any more of, I think you would agree, is time. And so these are going to be on-the-spot short practices. And then we're going to create a really proactive holiday self-care plan. And this presentation is based on an article, 5 Mindful Tips for Navigating Holiday Stress, at www.mindful.org. Jennifer Wolken is the author. And we'll be looking at it through the lens of mindfulness, though. So if you wanted to reference that article again, that's available for you. So like I said, we're going to look at holiday stress through the lens of mindfulness. And so it is important that we talk about what is mindfulness. It's a really simple definition, folks. It's just paying attention, being present, but it's in a particular way. It's on purpose, it's in the present moment, and without judgment. And judgment arises so easily in us as human beings because that's honestly what kept us alive in prehistoric times, as we had to judge whether something was safe or not safe, whether the person that was coming into our territory was a marauder or a friend. So this is something that's quite natural to us. So we just notice those snap judgments or those snap about people or about situations. I don't like this, whatever it might be. It's just simply paying attention on purpose in the present moment and without judgment. And it's quite the opposite of how we typically live. Research shows that almost 47% of the time, almost 50% of the time, half of our life, half of our waking hours are spent thinking about something other than what we're doing. And the research further goes on to say that this wandering mind typically makes us unhappy. And so this mind wandering does not serve us well. So something to recognize is that our minds are always on. You may notice that it sometimes feels like there's a barrel of monkeys jumping around up there. There's so many thoughts going on. And unfortunately, it would be so wonderful if we had an on-off switch like this gentleman has on the top of his head in that visual, particularly at night when you're trying to go to sleep, right? And all of the thoughts are just coursing through your mind. But the important thing to recognize is that just because we think, it does not mean that it's true. These thoughts arise from so many different places, memories, sensory stimulation. Sometimes God knows where they came from, right? So just because we think doesn't mean it's true. And with our mindfulness practice, begin to develop a different relationship to our thoughts. So I want to talk about stress to begin. Stress is unavoidable. It's very subjective. I wish that I could say the course that Mary referenced, mindfulness-based stress reduction, I wish it could be mindfulness-based stress elimination, but it's not the case. As we're alive, we will have stressors. But for me, my stressor might be quite different than Mary's stressor. She might enjoy something that I find highly stressful and vice versa. And so research has told us that our interpretation of what's actually occurring, our perception and our mindset really, really matter. There's a term called eustress, and it actually means good stress. And you might be saying, oh my God, good stress? I don't think so. But good stress can actually motivate us. It can really focus our energy. It's typically short term, and it's perceived to be within our coping capabilities. It can actually feel exciting. It can get us revved up for a presentation, for, when we clean our apartments, when guests are coming to sleep overnight, out of town guests or dinner guests, whatever. And it can actually improve our performance. And so stress can be good. And there's this performance curve that was developed by two psychologists, Yerkes and Dodson, all the way back in 1908. And what they found is when the stress level is low, our performance is typically pretty lame. But as the stress level rises, our performance becomes more motivated, more focused. And then when we're at the optimal stress level, we have a peak performance. But if we don't get any release from this, say, for instance, we went from one stressful event to another, we become fatigued, we become sick, we are heading towards burnout and breakdown, which is really not where we want to go. So it's really important, as these layers of stress tend to build, and particularly during the holidays, that we have the capacity to work with this stress. And so what we're going to talk about today is short practices, many times. That's really what makes the difference. There is formal meditation, which a lot of people think of as when we meditate, we're sitting in a cross-legged position. This lady here with the lights strung around her, we often visualize somebody sitting on a cushion on the floor with their hands in lotus, their body in lotus position, their hands in particular position. But we don't have to meditate. We don't have to do that to meditate. We can sit in a chair. We can sit in an office chair. We can sit in a subway chair. We can actually have a meditation practice of driving to work, of turning off the radio, of simply being present, feeling our hands on the steering wheel, feeling our body breathing, being completely present, focused on our driving. So there's many different ways that we can practice formal meditation. But the idea of formal meditation, it looks like everybody is kind of in a lovely zone, right? The idea of formal meditation is to notice. I always like to say it's falling awake rather than falling asleep, which is what when we close our eyes, we often perceive that that's what we're doing. But it's really, like I said, falling awake. So you're in a dignified posture. but you're alert. So informal practice, our formal practice is where we actually train our mind to focus. Because remember, I said half of the time we're not even present in our daily life. So in our formal practice, we're actually training our mind to focus. We're building our mindfulness muscle. And that's much the way that we build our muscle when we go to the gym. You don't walk down the streets of New York City pushing, weights up and down, but rather you're in the gym so that you can create that agility and that strength in your body so that you can be highly functional, so you can walk, so you can run, so you can have the strength to carry packages. So that's why we go to the gym. We train our mind so that we can be present in our lives. So from the time that we get up in the morning till we have our shower, when we feel the water falling on our skin, we smell the soap in the shower, we smell the coffee or the tea that we're enjoying at our breakfast. We listen to music like this lady is doing over here, relaxing with a cup of tea, listening to music, or looking outdoors, being with your children, with your family, or touching this little guy touching a Christmas tree. So we're really fully present for the moments in our life. That's the goal of our meditation. That's the goal of teaching our mind to focus so that we can truly be present for our lives. So we're going to talk about holiday stress now. We've talked about the definition of meditation, of what it is. It's the formal meditation, it's the informal meditation, and how the formal meditation really flows into our day-to-day moments in our life. But now, in this period of the year, we've got a lot of stressors. And the first one that I'm going to cover is the time demands. I'm sure many of you would agree that it feels like there's just not enough moments in the day. So the antidote to the time demands is learning how to say no. How to Say No Without Feeling Guilty is actually a book by Patty Brightman and Connie Hatch. And they say, so we're saying yes to too many projects, to too many parties, whatever it might be that we're saying yes to. They say that out of guilt or fear of confrontation, we take on more projects or we invest in someone else's priorities. And in that process, we dissipate our most valuable personal resources, our time, our energy, our money, on things that aren't really important to us, saying yes to going out for dinner with a group of friends when you really can't afford it, or that you're going to take on another task that you really have no time for. And each time we agree to something without enthusiasm or interest, we waste a little bit more of these precious resources. We probably feel a little bit angry or a little bit more, disillusioned with ourselves. So it's okay to say no. So we stop when somebody asks us, and we can say no. And when we say no, folks, we can create the space to say yes to the things that are really important to us. That's so important to understand how we take care of ourselves by saying no to somebody else. And we can say no in a really lovely way. We don't lie and we don't say, I'll think about it if you don't want to do it. The realistic response is really to just say simply, thank you for asking. I'm so happy that you felt you could ask me for this, but I really appreciate you thinking of me for this opportunity. But, at this point in time, unfortunately, I won't be able to help you with this. So you don't apologize and give all sorts of reasons. You just keep it simple. I just have to say no this time. Practice saying no. You can even imagine a scenario and then practice saying no either by yourself or with a friend. And remember, our own self-worth does not depend on how much we do for other people. So much of what we should be doing is for our own selves, taking care of ourselves. We cannot pour from an empty cup. And so it's so important to take those moments during our day to make the time to take care of our own selves. So I mentioned that we're going to do really quick, short practices that you can do any place, anytime. These small moments, many times, are what really make the difference. So the first practice that I want to do is called 2 feet, 1 breath. And you might say, why are we thinking about our feet? But actually, when you think about the stress response and where you feel it in your body, you probably feel it. It could be in your jaw. I'm sure many people are jaw grinders, or their jaw is so tense. It could be in your neck, in your shoulders, in your chest, could be in your belly feeling a sense of unease. It could be just this general overall body tightness. The breath gets shorter and more shallow, the heart rate goes up. Our feet, when you think about it, they're not involved in the fight or flight response, are they? They're pretty neutral. And so when we have the capacity to really feel our feet on the ground, then we have a really neutral place to bring our awareness several times throughout the day. You can see these people at the elevator. What are they doing? They're scrolling on their phones, right? So I encourage you, for those moments when you're just standing waiting for something, don't go to your phone to fill your time, but rather feel your feet on the ground. And let's do it together right now. You can either continue to sit, or you can stand up, because when you do stand up, you can stand up and stand by the side of your screen if you like. So, or you can just remain seated. So you simply feel your feet in the ground, and you can even push the weight into your feet a little bit, kind of wiggle your feet around, and then just take a breath. Let it go through your mouth like you're sighing it out. When we sigh, we rebalance our nervous system. So let's do that again. Bringing awareness down to your feet, closing your eyes if you like, and just really feeling into your feet. And then taking an inhale through your nose, feeling the energy of the inhale, and then letting the exhale go with a sigh. If you're sitting at your desk for a large part of your day, I recommend that you just stand up and do this several times, just standing next to your desk, feeling your feet on the ground, and just one full sigh. The other, you see somebody's hand on the doorknob. The other time I suggest this is before you enter your apartment, before you enter your home, just feel the doorknob, feel your feet on the ground, take a sigh, and metaphorically leave the day behind and feel totally present for your family. So that's 2 feet, 1 breath. The other tool, practice number 2, is a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding practice. And this is a really helpful practice too, because you can do this anywhere, anytime, any place. And I invite you, when you're either at your desk, or for some of you, I'm sure that you guide tours through the museum, at the end of a tour, or at several times throughout the day, do this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding practice. So you find 5 things that you can see that share a particular characteristic. It could be 5 purple things in the space that you're in. Or it could be find 5 things that are hanging on the wall, or 5 things that have some connection to nature, whether you can do this indoors or outdoors. And then next, notice 4 things that you can feel. So notice what it feels like to feel each of them. It could be the clothing on your body. How does that feel? It could be the air on your exposed skin. You could also turn to your connection to your feet, feeling your connection to the ground, or your body sitting on the chair that you're sitting in. So just 4 things that you can feel, and then 3 things that you can hear. And you can kind of explore with this. You can find the sound that's the closest to where you are physically, and then you can find a sound that's the furthest away. And you might play with noticing beginnings and endings, and try to look for the raw data of the sound. New York is filled with sound, and I like to call it the symphony of sound. All of the sirens, the horns, the people. So really enjoy the sounds and feeling gratitude that you can actually hear them, right? And then 2 things that you can taste. And again, you may not, you can use the term pleasant. If you're hungry, often that's not necessarily pleasant taste. You can use the term pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. So maybe one thing that you can taste that might be pleasant, one thing that's unpleasant or neutral. And then one thing that you can smell. And you may not be able to identify that one thing at first, or it may be unpleasant. So just term it unpleasant. But just kind of, I love this phrase, let your senses rip. Our senses are always in the present moment. And so anytime we turn to our sense doors of sight, touch, hearing, taste, or smell, we come into the present moment. So this is another really short present moment practice. And what this does is it creates balance in our body, because our body is always balancing between the sympathetic, which is the fight or flight part of our nervous system, and the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest, the relaxation part of our nervous system. And the different systems in our body are either sympathetic or parasympathetic. But if we get stuck, perhaps in, say, what's most frequent is getting stuck in fight or flight, the sympathetic activity, then that dominates and that creates wear and tear in our body. And so these really short practices, this finding our breath and just taking a sighing it out, that brings our nervous system back into balance. Now that ensures that we have better health, folks. And so these short practices, these short dynamic practices can be really, really powerful. And also, I want you to notice how when you're stressed, your mind will tell you, you have no time to do this. You've got to keep your nose to the grindstone. So just notice that thought that arises, and just, you can even talk to it. I notice, but I'm not really listening, and go about doing what you plan to do for yourself. So the stressor number 2 is holiday loneliness. We often long to spend the holidays with those that we love. Maybe they're far away, or for whatever reason, certainly during the pandemic, we couldn't share the holidays with those that we love, or those who we desire to love. Perhaps there's somebody in your life that you wish you were in a more loving relationship with. And so for this reason, this may create feelings of loneliness. So the antidote to holiday loneliness is very simple, really extending ourselves, donating our time to help those less fortunate. The news last night on NBC, I think it was last night or the night before, had a wonderful segment on how people felt so much better when they got out and helped others. And practice the art of compassion, thinking about others' needs before our own. And compassion really is just saying, how can I help? What do you need? How can I help you? And then giving can come in many forms. Perhaps you're saying, I don't have any time for that, Mickie, or I don't have money. Giving can be a smile. It can be taking the time to listen to somebody, to really, truly listen, not in our minds thinking about what we're going to suggest to them, but rather really listen, and providing emotional support for somebody. And I love this 12 days of Christmas kindness, but we can practice this kindness any time of year. But in this season, to really overcome any loneliness you might be feeling, it's really important to practice these really simple ways of feeling valued. And the stop practice is the tool number 3. I suggest 2 or 3 times during your day, just stop whatever you're doing using that STOP acronym. Take a few breaths, and you can stop and do it right now. So if you're at your desk, or if you're doing something right now, just stop for a moment. Take a few breaths. Again, you can sigh it out if you like, or you can just breathe normally. And then observe with kindness and compassion, what do I need right now? And it may be your body may tell you, you need to stand up, honey. You need to move. You need to go for a short walk around your office space. And then the P is just to proceed with greater clarity and focus. Or you might be off task. And so you can use this, stop. Whatever you're doing, take a few breaths, observe, I've got to get back on task. I've got to get this project done. And then you can proceed again with greater clarity and focus. So the stop practice can be another really important, very in the moment, short practice to implement. Holiday stressor number 3, expectations of perfection. The media tells us that everything needs to be perfect, right? We all aspire, many of us aspire that things should look, taste, feel, and be a certain way. But it's really how we deal with this realization that determines our well-being. So, antidote to perfectionism is to really reflect on the true meaning of the holidays. What does Kwanzaa mean? And what does it mean to you? And perhaps if you're not familiar with that holiday, looking it up. Dr. Karenga, a professor and chairman of Black Studies at California State University, created Kwanzaa in 1966. And it's really a celebration of different harvest celebrations. And it takes place this year, January 1st. It's Saturday, January 1st, 2022. And just as in Hanukkah, there are candles lit, but there are 7 candles that are lit for one day of the week. So really familiarizing yourself with the holidays that aren't necessarily familiar with you. The candle lighting ceremony each evening provides the opportunity to gather and to discuss the meaning of Kwanzaa. The first night, the black candle in the center is lit, and it's the principle of unity is discussed, and one candle is lit each evening, and the appropriate principle is discussed. So it's a lovely celebration. And then there's the Hanukkah story. There's many different celebrations, but Hanukkah also coincides with the winter solstice, and it symbolizes the creation of light in the darkest of times in Jewish history. So Jews celebrate Hanukkah as an 8-day holiday that commemorates the rededication of the Holy Temple after the Jewish people reclaimed it. And so while they expected a small amount of oil to light the temple only briefly, it miraculously burned for a full 8 nights. And so this makes Hanukkah both a historical observance as well as a spiritually significant one. And then, of course, there's Christmas. And so it's both a sacred religious holiday and a worldwide cultural and, of course, commercial event. And oftentimes that commercialization really gets in the way of the celebration. And so really turning to these holidays, their spirituality, their meaning, and what their meaning is to you, and looking to how can you celebrate them in a more meaningful manner. So now I'd like to suggest that we take some slow, deep breaths together, because this you can do any place, anytime. Actually, all of these practices that we've just been doing, you can do any place, anytime. But when we really slow our breath, we actually stimulate a nerve called the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is also called the wandering nerve. It wanders through many different organ systems of our body. When we stimulate this nerve, we actually feel better. And so we can do that through our breathing, through doing, by using our diaphragm, which is the primary muscle of breath. And so I'm going to invite you to just sit and place your hand in your belly, and you can place one in your chest if you like, or you can place them both in your belly. And I'm going to invite you to exhale first. Oftentimes people will say, take a deep breath, and there's residual air in the bottom of our lungs. And so we don't feel like we can breathe very deeply, and that in itself could create some panic. So exhale first. And as you exhale, bring your belly back towards towards the spinal column, exhaling fully, and then breathing in through your nose, allowing the belly to swell just like you're blowing up a balloon in the belly, and then releasing again through your mouth, very slowly, like you're blowing out a birthday candle, but you're not blowing it out. You're just playing with the flame. It's just flickering as you slowly exhale. And then breathing in one more time, blowing up the balloon in your belly, and then releasing again very slowly. This can be a really, really powerful practice, folks, because when we're in fight or flight, we're actually breathing in a very short, shallow way. And that signals to the body that we are in fight or flight. And so if we just take, that probably took us about 1 minute to just sit and expand the belly so that the diaphragm can move further down into the abdominal cavity. We're activating the diaphragm, which activates the vagus nerve. And then in the exhale, bringing the belly back towards the spinal column, that pushes the diaphragm up. And then we exhale all of the air from our lungs. And then repeating this, the diaphragm falls on the inhale, it rises on the exhale. And so the belly is actually what is pushing the diaphragm. Oftentimes we're just chest breathers, and so we're not breathing really fully. So just implementing these slow, deep breaths in the middle of your day, or before you do a presentation, or before you start preparing for guests or whatever it might be, can really make all the difference to your stress level. Holiday stressor number 4, the indulge and guilt cycle, mindless eating and drinking. How many, or shopping, it could be just fill in the blanks, whatever it might be that you do during the holidays. That's your kind of your way, your habit pattern. We often do it more mindlessly during the holidays. We kind of feel like, you know what, it's the holidays, I'm just going to let everything go. So the antidote to the eating, which is most prevalent, I would think, is to take time to enjoy all the flavors. And you can use this ABCDE, which is a really basic way to establish a mindful eating practice. So before you go for that one more cookie or 2 more cookies, whatever it might be, ask the question, why am I eating now? Am I really hungry? Or is it just, I want the taste again? Is it really good for me? Is it nourishing for me? And then what am I eating now? Again, is it nourishing? And then what else am I doing now that may be distracting? How many of us are sitting in front of our computers or sitting in front of a television? And before we know it, the package of whatever is sitting on our lap is gone. And we can't, oh my God, we didn't even realize that we ate it all. So really stopping, what am I eating? Why am I eating? What am I eating? And then what else am I doing now that may be distracting? And then bring gratitude in. Feel gratitude for the food that you have. And then chew. And you can feel gratitude by actually smelling the food, by putting it into your mouth, really anticipating the flavor of it, and putting it into your mouth, and then beginning to slowly chew. Chew really slowly and don't swallow it until it's really completely chewed. And then dine, don't just eat. So all of this mindless eating that we tend to do in between meals, as we're preparing the meal, make it a dining experience. Perhaps your whole family sits down at the dinner table, or you and your spouse, or you and a friend, whatever it might be, and really fully engage your attention in the act of eating. That's such an important part of this mindfulness, remembering that 50% of the time we're really not present for what we're doing. And eating is certainly something that we engage in on automatic pilot and often don't even remember what we had for our last meal. So using those 5 ABCs, it's a really basic way to begin a mindful eating practice. And then the stressor number 5 is family and work anxiety. There's a lot of anticipatory stress at this time of year. There's memories of not so pleasant past experiences. It could be family or it could be a work party, whatever. There's a mix of different personalities. And I often say that, our work family is often just like our regular family. There's a whole mix of different cast of characters, right? And then it could be family or work dysfunction. Every place has it. And so just understanding that can be beneficial. Work stress, there's often a lot of end of the year deadlines that loom at this time of year, a lot of busyness. So if you're feeling the stress, again, telling yourself this is quite normal. This is just this time of year. So the antidote to this is to engage in gratitude. So the anticipatory stress, be grateful for your awareness, for mindfulness that can help you notice when this stressor occurs. And the memories of not so pleasant past experiences, always reminding yourself, whatever you're going to, it could be a work party, it could be a family party, this will be a new experience. And can I kindle some form of gratitude for my work family or my personal family, whatever it might be? Gratitude is a powerful emotional force. And then feel gratitude for the diversity of each personality. And you might try to think a little bit, what's underneath the distasteful qualities? Maybe that person that could be so loud and obnoxious, maybe underneath it all, they're very unsure of themselves, and this is just a facade for them. So really being compassionate for them as well. And then family dysfunction, either at work or at home, this is an opportunity to look at habit patterning and not engage in unhealthy patterns. And so when you see somebody else doing something that's not particularly appealing to you, it doesn't mean that you engage in it as well, kind of a tit for a tat. So gratitude for your understanding that you have this choice. And I love this quote by Tara Brach. She says there is something, she's a very preeminent mindfulness teacher in the Western world. And she says there is something bold and liberating about saying yes to our entire imperfect and messy life. And I love this little character down here that's saying yes. And so this also lends itself to the attitudinal foundation of acceptance. And so this is just the way it is right now. So saying yes to all the imperfections. Life is just not perfect. Wouldn't it be wonderful that it were? And so I just wanted to spend a few more moments on gratitude, because gratitude is really, like I said, it's a real balm and a salve for the worried mind. There's been a lot of research around gratitude. And over the past 2 decades, the Greater Good Science Center at the University of California in Berkeley has done a lot of research and identified very strong benefits of gratitude for our minds, our bodies, and our relationships. And so they have found that overall, more grateful people are happier. They're more satisfied with their life. They're more resilient to stress. They get along better with others. They're less depressed. They achieve more, and they're more helpful and generous. And when you think about it, when you can be grateful for what you have the capacity to do, the opportunities that you have in your life, you're more apt to be generous with other folks too, right? And so, what are the ways that we can practice gratitude? So, we can keep a gratitude journal. We can give genuine compliments to your work colleagues and to your family. Open your sense doors to your world and marvel at the beauty around you. When you're in New York, there's so many people that spend thousands of dollars to come to New York as tourists, and you might notice them, and their eyes are wide open and they're just marveling at the architecture. They're marveling at so many different things. They're just loving it. And so, can you be a tourist in your own city, opening your sense doors? What am I hearing? What am I seeing? The lights are always on in New York, right? It's never in darkness. And so, just marveling at all of the little things around you. Notice that you have enough food on your table. You have enough to eat. Go to thanks.org and start a gratitude challenge with your work colleagues. And then continue to add to this list. And I highly encourage you to, before you go to sleep at night, as you close your eyes, remember 3 things that you are grateful for that day. And even as you leave the work setting, your mind will tell you all of the things that you left undone or the things that you wish hadn't gone the way that they did. And you can acknowledge that. But at the same point in time, can you acknowledge 3 good things that happened during your workday? And it could be something as simple as, that moment when this work colleague or this friend that small interaction that we had was so gratifying to me. I was so happy to see her happy or he happy, whatever. But thinking about three good things that happen during your work day can be really powerful. And then at the end of the day, three good things that happen during your day, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whether it was during your commute. And then as you wake up in the morning, you know, oftentimes people say rather humorously, I'm always happy to be above ground. Whether it's that or, feel your breath in your body and express gratitude for being awake, alive, and breathing. Notice how easy it is for you to think of the negative things because this is, again, very natural. Welcome to being human. The negative thoughts, Rick Hansen is a neuropsychologist who coined the phrase negative thoughts stick like Velcro. Positive thoughts slip away like Teflon. And again, this is the way we evolved as a species because we had to remember where danger lurked. But today, neuroscience tells us we have that same propensity to think about what is negative rather than what is positive. So if you can really keep your mind in a positive groove, we're actually building neural connections in our brain when we do that. And it becomes easier and easier to see the positive in things. So understand that as well. If you're a person that sees the negative all the time, you can correct that. You can actually change the neural pathways in your brain so that you can see more of the positive elements in your life. And I can guarantee you that you will be a happier person if you can note those things. So now we're going to talk about your own self-care plan for the holidays. And so if you have a paper and pencil, you can write these things down, or you can also just think about them in your mind, or you can also go into the chat. And Mary will read some of the stress indicators and some of these strategies that we're going to talk about, but she's not going to say your name. So you can feel comfortable just putting it into the chat. And we won't divulge who it is. So thinking about your own personal stress indicators, just taking a breath before we do this, and maybe even just closing your eyes for a moment and just sitting back. Thinking about some of the things. How do you know that you're stressed? What in your body tells you that you're stressed? Is it a tight jaw, clenching of the jaw? Is it butterflies in your stomach? Is it tightness in your chest? Rapid heartbeat? So those are some of the physical symptoms. But what are your behavioral symptoms? You might start elongating your day, going to bed much later. You might become a little more obsessive. For some people, they don't eat enough, or they start cramming in sweets. And other people eat too much, maybe too many of the wrong foods, that you're eating more junk food than you should. So what tells you? What are your personal stress indicators? And then think about the unhelpful strategies that you tend to implement, and we all have them. Nobody's perfect. Some of these are learned from our family. We may overeat, or we may not eat enough. Or this may be a time when we self-medicate with coffee, with alcohol, or any other substance of choice. If you're a smoker, it may be you may be more inclined to smoke more. Or you may become really self-critical. you may notice that inner critic really pops up and you start berating yourself. So, just noticing what are the unhelpful strategies that you tend to implement when you're in stress mode. And now we know what the unhelpful strategies are, but I want you to think about what could be helpful strategies that you know would be more effective. It could be listening to your favorite music. It could be doing some physical exercise. It could be getting to bed half an hour earlier, getting some good rest. That can really make us feel dramatically different. Or for many people, getting outdoors, getting out in nature can be really soothing. Things such as aromatherapy. So just thinking about what can be helpful for me. And then we talked about several tools today that you can use, really short, quick practices. And which of those would you like to implement daily? There was the stop practice, STOP. And by the way, you will have access to these practices, but it could be the stop practice. It could be the 2 feet, 1 breath. It could be, standing more frequently if you've got a desk job and just feeling your feet in the ground and taking a soothing breath. The stop practice. Stop whatever you're doing several times during the day. Take a few conscious breaths. Observe what's going on for yourself. I'm stressed in this moment. What do I need? Why am I stressed? Am I overwhelmed? If you are, you can assure yourself, do some helpful self-talk. I've got this. I can handle this. Whatever it might be. It could be the diaphragmatic breathing. I strongly encourage you to practice the belly breathing. You can do that sitting on the subway. You can do that during your commute. It could be the mindful eating. That's a really wonderful practice to implement during this time of year, particularly when there's so much temptation around and the inclination to say, it's the holidays. This will all be gone in the new year. I'll put this into my New Year's resolution. Or it may be over shopping. Just taking a pause, taking a break, using that stop practice before you click buy. Do I really need this? Or can I afford to buy this for whoever you're buying it for? Or is there something else that I can do that's within my budget? So whatever it is, just using those pauses, those momentary pauses, so that you can really look back on this holiday, so that you can really say, I learned something about myself. I learned some practices that can be really beneficial to me in my life. And as you begin to implement these practices, they become more habitual. They're easier for you to remember. They're easier for you to do. They're more natural. Because what we're really doing with these practices is we're creating that space between the stimulus, which is our stressor. These are quotes by Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, who as such a powerful, strong, and amazing human being. He says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. So when that stressor triggers you, find that space through your breath, through pausing, because in that space is our power to choose our response. And it's in our response where our growth and our freedom lie. And so sometimes it feels like we have no choice, but we do. And his other quote that I love is, everything can be taken from a man, I add, or a woman, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And so the power of gratitude that we talked about today, implementing that several times throughout your day, that can really make a difference in your life. Acceptance. This is just the way things are right now. Accepting this, the whole of this life. Curiosity. It's another wonderful attitude, being really curious about what's going on now. Why am I reacting or responding in this way? What's going on? What's beneath this? And then letting go of how we wish life could be, but rather acknowledging that this is the way it is right now. So letting go and acceptance are really intimately intertwined. And so in this season, if you can pick some of those, the short practices that we did today, and then the attitudes that you want to implement, and really work your own self-care plan. So let's do a short meditation together just to end the presentation, and just imagining that we're all sitting in a space together. Just imagining that we're in a circle, just like the folks in the picture are. And just finding your breath. Feeling the breath in your body, and you can place your hands on your belly if you like. We'll just begin by doing some diaphragmatic breathing, exhaling, bringing the belly back towards the spine, exhaling all the air in your lungs, and then inhaling, allowing the belly to rise like you're blowing up a balloon in your belly as you fill your lungs with air. And then slowly letting go again, exhaling through your mouth very, very slowly. Inhaling one more time through your nose. And then exhaling through your mouth, letting go. And now just feeling the breath in your body. You might notice how the chest expands with the inhale and contracts with the exhale. And so just feeling the rhythm of your breath. And as you feel your breath, allowing your body to be supported fully by the chair. Allowing any tension that you're noticing in your body to simply release, to let go. And feeling the connection of your feet to the floor, to the ground, and to the earth. Noticing that perhaps in this moment, you might feel a greater sense of balance, a greater sense of ease. Or you may notice other things. Mindfulness is about noticing. You may notice the propensity of your mind to think. And just that very noticing is your success, because our mind always thinks. And very kindly and very gently returning your mind to your breath. Just breathing. Each breath that we breathe in each moment is unique to that moment. And so bringing curiosity to each breath, what does it feel like to breathe? Keeping your focus on the breath. Noticing the thinking mind, simply acknowledging thinking, coming back to breathing. Feeling gratitude for each breath as it arrives, as the body lets go to prepare for the next breath. Over and over again, this cycle repeats. And so now slowly returning to presence in the space that we're all sharing together. I'll ring the bell. Keeping your eyes closed, you can just simply listen to the sound of the bell, allowing the vibrations to enter your ears and following them all the way until they dissolve. Taking a deeper breath. Opening your eyes whenever you're ready and taking a look around the space that you're in. Opening your sense door of seeing and sight.
So once again, I want to thank you for the opportunity. We wish all of you a very happy and healthy holiday.